Hello my loves, it's Monica and today I am so excited because I'm coming at you with my final TBR of 2021. Wow. That's wild to think about. I cannot believe we have October, November, December. Like that's it. Truly, I understand that I have experienced time throughout my entire life, and so I should not be constantly surprised by it, but I am constantly surprised by time. This year, I feel like it especially just went by so fast. So yeah, I'm a little bit floored that this is probably my final TBR of the year. I might do like a holiday one if I get real deep into that spirit. But as of right now, these are at least the top 10 books that I really want to read before the end of the year. Honestly, I just feel like I've had such a mixed bag of a reading year. I started off the year so incredibly strong. I was reading so much, and then I fell into just the deepest of reading slumps, and a big part of that was honestly because I was really in this limbo period of life where I knew I was going to be moving back to New York City, but at the same time I didn't have a place to live or a person to live with, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing with my life and all of this stuff. And honestly, I'm still kind of in that limbo period, at least with what I'm doing with my life kind of thing. But I have moved and I feel like with sort of restarting a new season of life, a new phase in life, comes with it an excitement to do things. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I just when I'm in a limbo period, I really struggle to accomplish any of my personal life goals. It just sort of starts to feel like nothing is worth doing, which is not good. Not a good mental place to be in. But luckily that hurdle, we've gotten over it, and I am now in a much better space mentally, and feeling very excited about the reading that I have been doing and the reading that I want to do. So I'm really hoping to just end out this year on a high note. We'll see how it goes, but hopefully no more reading slumps, at least for the rest of 2021. I do want to mention really quick that if you watched my most recent, I just realized I'm not wearing a lip color. I have no lips, or woostas, as anyone who watched a lot of VeggieTales as a child would know. Anyways, as I was saying, in my most recent Cozy Games video, I partnered with Jade City in order to share one of my new favorite games, which is a mobile game called Disney Emoji Blitz, and I love playing that game. It is so addicting, and also it's one of my favorite games to play when I'm doing audiobooks. Anyways, in that video, I shared a sweepstakes that I'm hosting where you can win one of 3 Nintendo eShop gift cards. So if you want to enter that, there are still a few days left. So I just wanted to shout that out. All you have to do is download the app using the link in my description box. And then when you get to level 10, which if you're like me will happen very quickly, when you get to level 10, just take a screenshot and send it to me in an email. And the email is just monicakimsweeps@gmail.com. I'll have that in the description box below. And I'll be emailing the winners at the end of this month from that account. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there in case you missed it so that you don't miss it. Now, onto the TBR. I'm so excited to talk about all these books and then to begin reading them. So the first book is one that maybe some people are going to be surprised, if you followed along with my reading over the past little bit, but it is Vesper by Margaret Rogerson. So yeah, I read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and I have not talked very highly of it online, but here's the thing about Sorcery of Thorns. When I read it, for the first half of that book, I was convinced it was going to be one of my new favorite books of all time. It was so good. Everything was hitting for me. Had total Howl's Moving Castle vibes. I loved the main character, I loved the world, the love interest. I thought all the characters were super interesting, and there were so many good ideas in the story. But the issue that I had is that the execution of everything and the second half of the book just fell totally flat for me. I just felt like Sorcery of Thorns was so much amazing potential, and then just none of the execution that I really wanted. I feel like I just really wanted the characters to go deeper, to, be a bit more complex, a bit more interesting. I wanted the plot to just be tighter. So even though I didn't like that book, I also had this feeling of like, this could be one of my all-time favorite authors, like in the future, like potentially. So I want to try and give her new book a read and see how I feel about it. This one was actually sent to me by McElderry Book. So in this book, we follow Artemisia, who is in training to be a Grey Sister. And so the Grey Sisters basically cleanse the bodies of the deceased and give them like proper burials so that the spirits are prevented from like rising up and like devouring all the living people. And one day her convent ends up being attacked by possessed soldiers. And so she calls on this like malevolent spirit called the Revenant, and in order to like defeat these soldiers, but then she needs to like send the Revenant back where it came from, but she doesn't know how. So she's now on this journey to like figure out the solution, and the solution might possibly also be coming from the Revenant itself. I'm kind of getting the vibe that the Revenant is probably going to be like a hot guy. And that's the love interest. That's at least the vibe I'm getting from the synopsis. I don't know. I don't know. I'm really hopeful for this one. Again, I really loved so many of the ideas in Sorcery of Thorns, and I think like if this one just hits a bit better for me, if that plot is just a little bit tighter, this could be a new favorite. So I don't know. It's gonna go one way or the other. This is either gonna be like a book that I love and gush about, or I'm gonna be really annoyed by. So I'll report back. The next book on my list is Down Comes the Night by Allison Saft. And this one, I mean, just like the cover alone is such like late fall kind of vibes. So I'm very excited to read this probably sometime in like November. And this is supposed to be a snow-drenched romantic fantasy, which sounds amazing. I also am obsessed with the blurb, or like, I don't know, whatever this like thing at the top of the summary is called. It says, he saw the darkness in her magic, she saw the magic in his darkness. Yes, that is the vibe I want. So yeah, this sounds basically like a sort of gothic, dark, romantic, fantasy, sort of historical setting kind of atmosphere, which is everything I'm looking for in life. Our main character is basically able to do magic, but she's really reckless with it, and this causes her to be dismissed from the Queen's Guard. So then she gets called to this like mysterious manor by this man who doesn't let her like leave her room after dark because it's dangerous, and she's there to try and heal this guy. But then it turns out her patient, the guy who she's been brought to try and like save, is Hal Cavendish, who's the sworn enemy of her kingdom, also known as the the Reaper of Vestria. So she's like now having to have this like moral conundrum of like, do I rescue this man who is like evil potentially, or at least seen as evil, and then yeah, it's like a bit of a romantic fantasy also. So yeah, this one is one that I have been really excited to dive into ever since I picked it up this spring, but I've been saving it for this time of year because I just sort of felt like it would be the perfect book for this time of year. Hopefully I am right. I have a few friends who have read it who really liked it too, so fingers crossed I'm one of those people. I'll let you know. The next book that I'm so excited to pick up is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine, and it's actually the winner of the 2020 Hugo Award, and I've just heard such amazing things about this book. It's meant to be like super imaginative and complex and like explosive. It's also supposed to be like a sort of discussion, or it's also supposed to have a lot of themes around cultural imperialism, which I think is really fascinating, and I love seeing topics like that explored through fantasy. So basically in this book we follow Mahit Dizmar, who is an ambassador who has traveled to the capital of the interstellar Texakalani Empire. So this is very much so a space opera, which is also something I've been wanting to like get more into after reading The First Sister, which I really enjoyed. So this one also ticks that box for me. And like fall winter is the perfect time for high fantasy and like sci-fi in my opinion. I mean, any time of the year is, but like truly nothing better than a sci-fi fantasy book during the colder months. Anyways, so we follow Mahit, and she's there to take up this new post as the ambassador, but then she finds out that the previous ambassador was actually murdered and that she might be the next victim. So it's sort of like this race against time to figure out like what happened to this previous ambassador, what's going on in this empire. And I am thoroughly excited to dive in. Obviously there's like probably a lot more to this book than that, but based on the blurb and things I read from other people, that's sort of the general gist. And I'm excited to read this one and be able to talk to it in even more depth, because I feel like I'm gonna want to discuss this one a lot and might actually do this one as a reading vlog. So let me know if that's of interest to you, and I'll be sure to make that, because yeah, I feel like this will be a good one to like discuss with people. So if you've read this, especially, look out for that reading vlog. This next one is a book that I've been meaning to pick up like all year. It was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I'm finally doing it. It is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. I read Malinda Lo's other book, Ash, really enjoyed it, so I'm very excited. This is a very different kind of book. This one is historical fiction, whereas Ash was like fantasy, but this book is set in 1950s America, specifically Chinatown within San Francisco, and we follow a 17-year-old girl who's our main character, and she's also a lesbian, and so this following her story. It's also like during the time of the Red Scare. But yeah, I've been really excited to pick this one up, and it just recently, I believe, won the National Book Award, so that made me even more excited to pick it up, and also just like, I'm so excited that it won. That's amazing. I love to see stories like this being recognized and loved, so I'm so excited to read this one and hopefully love it. I'm sure I will. Okay, so this next one is kind of cheating because it's a whole series, but an adaptation of the series is in the works, and I cannot believe I've never read it. So I'm thinking about reading it and doing a full like reading vlog for it. So let me know if that's of interest, but it's the Percy Jackson series. Yeah, is it shameful that I have read I've read like multiple of the Rick Riordan Presents books and I love them, but I haven't read Percy Jackson? It is shameful. It is. I recognize that. I'm gonna fix that. That's what we're doing. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing, hopefully, if it's of interest, a whole reading vlog of the Percy Jackson series. And I'm really excited for that because I think it'll be a fun, wholesome, good time. And I'll finally like get all the references from people who like talk about like Percy and Annabelle. I want to know like who's Annabelle or Annabeth, something like that. I also like, I want to care about what camp I'd be at Camp Half-Blood. I don't know. We'll see. That's a discussion for another day. Do I need to give the synopsis for Percy Jackson? It's a middle grade series, and I think other parts of the series are YA, but like this series is middle grade. But basically we follow a young boy who discovers that he is part Greek god, I believe demigod is the word, and he goes to a summer camp for other youth who are also children of gods. So yes, I'm excited for this adventure, and we will see how it goes. This next book came highly recommended by my friend Matthew, who is also a booktuber, and it is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey, and this one sounds so fun. It's supposed to be like a whodunit, like mystery novel, but set at a magical school. However, our main character is Ivy Gamble, who doesn't really have any magical abilities, but she is a PI. But her sister does have magical abilities and is a professor at this school. And Ivy is sort of like living this life where she's like trying to convince herself that she's not jealous of her sister, that she doesn't wish that she wants like magical abilities. And so when this like gruesome murder happens at this magical school, Ivy ends up being called to investigate it, and it also like sends her down this sort of like path of sort of figuring out like her own feelings about things, from what I understand. But yeah, I love a good mystery novel, so this ticks that box. Plus anything set at a magical school is a win for me, and especially this one has been compared to The Magicians, which is not a book I've read, but it's a book that I've always known I would like if I had read it. So So one day I'll do that. But I just love like quirky fantasy that plays on like really popular tropes or stories and like create something new. That sort of sounds like what this book is. And yeah, I'm really excited to check it out. Just sounds like a fun time, especially for like autumn, like a good mystery. Gotta love a good mystery. The next book on my list is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This one is also being adapted, which I'm really excited for. I know so many people love this book. It's also a pretty thick one, but this book is supposed to be reminiscent of like Hong Kong gangster films, but it's set in like a gritty, magical metropolis, and that just sounds phenomenal. We follow this family that's sort of fighting to retain control of this city, and 4 siblings and each of their own like individual like journeys. I'm also really interested because specifically I've heard that like the martial arts in this book is like phenomenally written, and I'm really intrigued for that because I often find myself struggling a lot with combat in books, but when it's done right, it can be really cool and fun to read. So I'm hoping that I like this one. And also just like I've been kind of wanting a really good like sort of gangster kind of book that just sounds like what I'm in the mood for right now. So yeah, that plus magic sounds like the perfect combo. Very excited to dive into this one. Next I wanted to try and maybe throw in a little bit of some literary fiction. It is literary fantasy, but I'm counting it, and that is The Memory Theater. This is by Karen Tidbeck. This one I've been really excited to read because it's supposed to be very like whimsical and wondrous, but like for an adult audience, which is like very much so my ideal kind of book. Like I loved The Starless Sea, for example. Like books that have that sort of very atmospheric, very magical and bigger than life, like beyond reality kind of tone. It's just like, that's just something I really love, but I feel like it's hard sometimes to find stories like that for an adult audience. So I was really excited when I heard about this one. It's been definitely one I've been wanting to pick up for a while, ever since I got it. But anyways, this book takes place in the Gardens, which is a world that is parallel to ours. It's a mystical realm and a place where feasts never end, games of croquet have devastating consequences, and teenagers are punished for growing up. For a select group of masters, it's a decadent paradise where time stands still, but for those who serve them, it's a slow torture where their lives can be ended in a blink. So, very, very interested in this one. Very intrigued by the like power dynamic of it. We're specifically following 2 best friends, Dora and Thistle, who are trying to escape this realm. So yeah, I just think that sounds really fascinating, especially because it's again this like very wondrous, magical place, but is it really for everybody? And so I'm very intrigued for like what this book is going to explore and how it does that. So this is definitely super excited to read that. Then I recently hauled 2 books that I'm really hyped to pick up. And the first one is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. And this author also wrote The 10,000 Doors of January, which I know people also love. And both of these books have sounded like ones that like, again, just very much so sound like my kind of thing. I love really whimsical stories, really like atmospheric stories, and that's what both of these books sound like. They also have a new book that just came out that's like supposed to be a feminist retelling of Sleeping Beauty, which I need, but I need to read at least 1 book by them before I buy more. So if I love this, then I'll probably go out and buy their entire backlist. So this book takes place in 1893, and there's no longer any such thing as witches. And so if you as a woman want power, so like magic was like a source of power for women, but now it's like been completely gotten rid of. So if the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. So we're following suffragists in this book, which super fascinating, super exciting for me. And in this book specifically, we're following the 3 Eastwood sisters who join with the suffragists, and they end up bringing magic back. One, I love a good like sister story, and I love the idea of like actually following like the suffragists, especially of like New Salem. I think that just sounds really fascinating and exciting, and also just like the whole idea of exploring like magic as this source of power for women, and like using that as like a metaphor for how women have been have had their power like sort of taken away historically, I think is going to be really impactful. So I'm very excited for this one. The cover is beautiful. And then lastly, I recently went to the bookstore and I was just like, I really just want like cozy, cute, fun autumn vibes, you know? Like I want Halloween Town in book form, Gilmore Girls in book form. And I think I found that, hopefully, in Paybacks, a Witch by Lana Harper. So this one just sounds like a really fun autumnal rom-com. So Emmy is a witch who hasn't been back to her like magical hometown in many years, and she's finally going back for this like basically big event that's happening because she's been guilted by her family. And so she goes back and she runs into this guy Gareth who she's had a crush on for a while, and so they start, you know, having relations with each other. But then she runs into another witch who she discovers Gareth is also seeing, and so the two of them team up in order to get revenge on Gareth. I also believe this is going to be a sapphic novel. Love to see it. So really excited for all those things. And I'll be 100% honest, one of the main things that like I was like, this is an instant buy for me, is because it has a Shannon McGuire blurb on it, where Shannon wrote, "Paybacks, a Witch is like the first Halloween wind through the corn. Brisk, breezy, and altogether refreshing. This is a sweet, charming read, absolutely designed to be enjoyed on a crisp fall evening." So yeah, these are the 10 books, kind of, let's pretend Percy Jackson is one, 10 books that I'm most excited to pick up for the rest of the year. I might do one more video, again, like I mentioned, that's like specifically for the holiday season because I do love the holidays, but as of right now, this is my list for the end of the year. But I'd love to hear from you all. What are the books that you're most excited to read this year? Are you planning on reading any of these? Have you read any of these? I'd love to know your thoughts, but please no spoilers. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!